belonging crumbles quickly, as even a brief sense of exclusion can feel like a physical pain. When people feel outside the group, their thinking narrows and their reactions often become more defensive. A threatened sense of belonging can lower performance, harden suspicion, and make ordinary encounters feel charged. That is why disconnection is never just an emotional inconvenience, but can spread into various aspects of life. The damage extends into school, work, health, politics, and the way strangers read each other in public. At the same time, a small moment of welcome can dramatically change the atmosphere. A patient listener, a respectful greeting, or a warm exchange can restore a sense of mattering. These moments do not erase history, but they can interrupt despair and open a different response. In the next sections, you will see how situations shape belonging, divide groups, distort judgment, and also repair connections. These ideas come from Geoffrey Cohen's book, Belonging, so subscribe to the channel for more clear ways to build connection. It is a central claim that situations shape behaviour more than people often admit. A person can appear confident in one setting and uncertain in another, without any deep change inside. Small cues of respect, voice, structure, and participation can alter whether people feel included or pushed aside. A classroom transforms when students are addressed with dignity and given a real place in the process. Groups change when leaders focus less on controlling outcomes and more on creating fair procedures. Democratic conditions reduce tension because people have a voice, clearer expectations, and more ownership over shared work. Authoritarian conditions may force short-term compliance, but also breed hostility, passivity, and scapegoating. The point is not that personality disappears, but that context brings different aspects of people to the forefront. Wise action begins when someone notices the hidden pressures within a moment and crafts a response differently. Change becomes more likely when the message aligns with the person, the timing, and their emotional need. Belonging is fragile because people do not enter situations as blank slates with neutral expectations. They carry memories of humiliation, exclusion, instability, and threat into classrooms, offices, clinics, and conversations. The same room can feel welcoming to one person and quietly dangerous to another. That difference often comes from unseen history, rather than anything obvious in the physical setting. Even a secure person can suddenly feel unsteady when entering a new environment or status ladder. Belonging works less like a permanent possession and more like a perception rebuilt again and again. People scan for signs that they matter, that mistakes are survivable, and that help will remain available. When those signs are missing, uncertainty can grow faster than outsiders around them realize. Support matters most at transitions because that is when doubt is sharpest and meanings are still forming. Early reassurance can create momentum that later success strengthens instead of leaving insecurity to set the tone. People often chase a sense of belonging by drawing a hard line between us and them. Exclusion can make hostile groups attractive, as they promise status, fellowship, and a simple story of blame. When people feel shut out, they become more open to groups that offer identity and certainty. That offer can be deeply conditional, requiring loyalty to prejudice, conspiracy, or aggression against outsiders. A false sense of belonging can still feel powerful, as it answers humiliation with recognition and shared purpose. Division is not a fixed fate written into permanent human nature or unchangeable character. Hostility grows when situations reward fear, conformity, and public displays of loyalty against another group. It weakens when people are given safer ways to feel heard, respected, and needed. Division is therefore sustained less by essence than by the social arrangements surrounding people. Changing those arrangements can interrupt the search for belonging through exclusion and redirect it toward connection. A divided group can transform when people must work together toward a meaningful goal rather than just arguing about principles. Shared purpose works because cooperation creates new experiences that old labels cannot fully control. People begin to see effort, vulnerability, and competence in those they once viewed as enemies. Respect can grow when opponents are treated as participants instead of targets to defeat or shame. Turning points often come through democratic forums, joint tasks, and repeated contact around real problems. These settings help people feel heard without demanding instant agreement or pretending deep differences never existed. They also make room for honesty, as trust grows faster when people can speak freely and still remain included. Once common work begins, New reference groups start forming, and new norms become possible. This is how a rigid boundary can soften into a workable sense of shared fate. Subscribe to the channel if you want more grounded ways to create cooperation before conflict hardens into identity. Another significant obstacle to feeling a sense of belonging is the habit of blaming individuals while ignoring the circumstances that surround them. We often quickly label others as rude drivers, failing students, dismissive bosses, or hostile strangers, and attribute fixed character flaws without considering the context. This habit feels natural because people rarely see the stress, pain, fear, or confusion that lies behind someone's behaviour. Instant judgment often poisons relationships by closing curiosity and escalating conflict. Once behaviour is seen as an essence, curiosity diminishes, and punishment seems like the only logical response. However, the hidden situation may include illness, shame, stereotype pressure, competing demands, or learned mistrust. Recognizing this does not excuse every harmful act, but changes the nature of a wise response. It invites questions, better diagnoses, and interventions that address the causes rather than merely condemning symptoms. The smallest acts also matter more once we realize we are part of the other person's situation. Belonging grows when people replace reflexive verdicts with sharper observation and more patient interpretation. Stereotypes distort belonging by altering what people notice before conscious reasoning even begins. A person can be misread in a second, then judged through a frame that feels objective. That distortion affects hiring, discipline, expectations, and everyday encounters that seem too small to matter. People often defend themselves against the idea of bias, which can make direct lectures backfire. Simply telling people to be fair can increase defensiveness, as most already believe they are fair. The more useful move is to redesign decisions so bias has less room to quietly operate. Clear criteria chosen in advance make it harder to retrofit standards around a favoured insider, blinding decision makers when possible, and monitoring disparities also expose patterns that intuition hides. Stereotypes shrink the humanity of others, but they also reduce the accuracy of our own judgment. Fairer situations emerge when systems are built to protect dignity rather than flatter our sense of objectivity. Belonging hinges on how people feel seen, especially when they are already under threat. Negative stereotypes can transform ordinary criticism into signals that one does not belong. Under pressure, individuals may protect themselves by withdrawing effort, mistrusting feedback, or avoiding help. Wise support can change the meaning of a critical moment without lowering standards or offering false praise. Clear assurance that criticism reflects high expectations and belief can transform a threat into respect. Older peers can normalize uncertainty by showing that early doubt is common and temporary. These messages work best when delivered at formative moments, before distrust hardens into a lasting story. The effects can spread outward, fostering better trust, stronger persistence, fewer absences, and less trouble. Belonging is not just about achievement, but is part of the mechanism that enables it. Protection and challenge can work together when people feel seen as capable participants in growth. These patterns become clear where their consequences are impossible to ignore. In schools, respectful norms, restorative practices, and wise feedback enhance trust, performance, and persistence. At work, fair hiring structures and early support can reduce hidden bias and maintain morale. In healthcare, warmth, listening, and thoughtful follow-up can improve treatment experiences and outcomes. In divided communities, common projects and guided conversations can weaken mistrust and foster civic imagination. Politics changes when people are asked real questions, listened to carefully, and treated as capable of reflection. Across these settings, the pattern remains remarkably consistent, even when the surface problem looks different. People perform better when situations signal welcome, dignity, possibility, and a path back after difficulty. Belonging is practical infrastructure for learning, cooperation, healing, and democratic life. Not just sentimental extra credit. Institutions become more human when they design encounters that help people feel respected before asking for change. The final message is hopeful, as it does not wait for perfect people or perfect systems. It encourages people to become better readers and crafters of the situations they already inhabit. This means noticing who may feel alone, who may be misread, and which cues are shaping interpretation. It involves fighting easy blame, asking for perspective, and creating processes that invite participation rather than fear. It also means using timing well, as support is most powerful when uncertainty is sharp and identity is unsettled. Small interventions matter when they are credible, targeted, and suited to the person before us. A simple greeting, a question, a note of trust, a fair procedure, or a shared task can redirect a path. None of this replaces structural reform, but it does expand what ordinary people can do today. Belonging becomes more durable when everyday encounters repeatedly confirm that difference need not cancel membership. Subscribe to the channel for more practical ideas that help turn ordinary encounters into steadier connection and wiser action.